Section 3. What is our opportunity? Why the two-pot model is no longer enough. Our economic system has traditionally operated with two basic sources of money: wages earned by workers through labor, taxes collected from wages, investments, and business profits to fund government spending. This two-pot capitalism worked well in the seller's market era when employment was widespread and consumer demand was strong. But today, machines have replaced millions of human jobs, and wages have not kept pace with productivity. Consumer demand is too weak to support the economy on its own. Enter the third pot, progress dollars. We now need a third source of money to sustain our economic system: progress dollars. Progress dollars are a non-taxpayer funded stimulus payments distributed directly to American adult citizens. They are created to replace the wages lost to automation. Unlike borrowed money or tax revenue, progress dollars are printed by the government with no obligation of repayment. They are backed by our productive capacity, not our tax base. Why progress dollars work in a buyer's market? In the buyer's market, the real problem is not low productivity. We can make more than ever thanks to machines. The problem is low demand. People don't have enough money to buy what we can produce. Progress dollars solve this problem directly by putting money into the hands of people who will spend it, restoring consumer demand, keeping businesses open, avoiding deflation and mass layoffs, encouraging further private investment by the wealthy. Unlike trickle-down economics, which puts money at the top and hopes it trickles down, progress dollars build the economy from the bottom up. Avoiding a Hoover-style mistake. One of the worst mistakes the United States made during the Great Depression was the Hoover administration's decision to cut government spending and raise taxes, which only deepened the economic crisis. We cannot afford to repeat that mistake. Cutting social spending, raising taxes, or tightening monetary policy during a buyer's market will further weaken demand, increase unemployment, and push us deeper into recession or worse. Instead, we must stimulate the economy, but smartly and without adding debt. Why printing, not borrowing, is the right approach. Progress dollars should be printed, not borrowed. Our money is already created digitally by the Federal Reserve when it conducts quantitative easing or supports financial institutions. The same principle can be applied to consumers through a structured, carefully controlled system. Printed stimulus money should come from a separate, off-the-books federal account, be distributed by the Social Security Administration, be managed and scaled by the Federal Reserve with inflation monitoring, be increased slowly, $100 at a time, until demand pull inflation appears. This avoids the debt spiral while still keeping demand at the optimum level for full use of our productive capacity. What about inflation? The main concern people raise is inflation. But remember, inflation only occurs when too much money chases too few goods. That's not our problem right now. We are in a buyer's market where too few people have enough money to buy the goods being produced. That's why progress dollars will not cause inflation in the early stages. Even later, once we begin to observe some demand pull inflation, that's a good sign. We've reached optimal demand. At that point, we can pause or slow down further increases, allowing production capacity to catch up with current demand. Why $500 per month? We estimate that $500 per month per adult will be close to the amount needed to restore full demand in our economy. That totals $6,000 per year, which can eliminate student debt over time for many, push low-wage workers into the middle class, supplement Social Security to make retirement viable, lift millions out of poverty, stimulate consumer spending, boosting business profits, increase sales and income tax revenue, reducing the deficit. After that $500 baseline is reached, annual increases of $25 per month can continue the progress as production capacity improves. Real benefits of the automation annuity. Here are just some of the outcomes. Reduce crime. With financial security, former offenders are less likely to return to crime. Yeah, you get out of jail now and you're flat broke, and the temptation's strong to go back to the main job that was providing for you, and that's being a criminal again. Whereas now, if you get out of jail, everybody gets the automation annuity, even though those in jail. So they come out with a good many thousands of dollars and a better chance to go straight. Lower abortion rates. Fewer economic abortions as families gain financial stability. End generational poverty. With sustained income, children grow up healthier and better educated. Shorter work weeks. Spread remaining jobs across the workforce, improving quality of life. That'll take a few generations to get to that point, but it is an option, something to look forward to. Hope for the future. Americans will believe again that the system works for everyone. The American Crossroads. Here's a comparison without progress dollars and with progress dollar annuity. We'll just continue to have more student loan debt versus a lot of them being able to pay off the student debt by the time they get out of college. We'll continue to experience an even greater decline in the American middle class versus rebuilding the middle class. Work till you drop, you're going to have to do that, versus retire securely or work by choice. Mounting government debt. They're kicking in a lot of money and a lot of debt right now just to keep the economy afloat, and now we're having trouble servicing that debt. With the progress dollar annuity, we can reduce the debt through higher tax revenue. Don't need to raise the rates, just people have more money. Declining healthcare access. Ooh, more money for essentials. Longer, harder work weeks, shorter work weeks, and a better balance. Rising crime, lower crime due to financial stability. Increased poverty. Oh yeah, that's just coming big time. Poverty dramatically reduced. We have the tools. We need the political will. If we understand that we are in a buyer's market, we must act accordingly. Let's not waste this moment or fall into fear-based inaction. Contact your elected representatives. Tell them you support legislation enabling progress dollar automation annuity payments. We are not talking about utopia. We are talking about a common sense, incremental approach to modernize capitalism and restore prosperity. Let's replace 20th century seller's market economics tools with a 21st century buyer's market solution. Here's a copy of a draft bill for Congress's consideration. This is Section 4 legislation. The book Automation Annuity with Magic Oranges contains a 4.5-page draft resolution for Congress to consider. An outline of this bill is shown below with a few key sentences highlighted. Note the other uses section of this bill will be discussed in Section 7. This is a bill to amend the Social Security Act to establish Automation Annuity program for broad-based economic optimization through replacement of consumer demand lost to automation and for other purposes. It goes to the House of Representatives, and it's entitled the Automation Annuity Act of 2025. There's a discussion about the findings and the purpose, its effect on consumer demand, economic opportunity and stability, inflation, distributional fairness, economic efficiency, and the monetary sovereignty of the government that enables us to do this. Purpose. The purpose of this act is to optimize national economic performance and shared prosperity by replacing consumer demand lost to automation with direct monthly payments to the people financed through sovereign currency issuance. Okay, this is the amendment to the Social Security Act. There is an established automation annuity program to be administered by the Social Security Administration. Then there's the authorization of payments and monetary issuance. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, using its authority to regulate United States currency and credit, is authorized to directed to fund and facilitate the disbursement of automation annuity payments each month. And on the amount of payment, the monthly automation annuity payment under this program shall be up to $1,000 for each eligible individual. After we reach a cruising altitude of about $500 per month for every adult U.S. citizen, it'll probably take us at least 20 years to get up to the $1,000 limit, and then they can revise it upwards at that time. Commissioner of Social Security shall disburse automation annuity payments on a monthly basis to eligible individuals. That's every United States citizen over the age of 18. This is the other use section, and we'll talk about it in Section 7. General provisions. The full faith and credit of the United States is hereby pledged to support the continuance of the automation annuity payments as a lawful obligation, ensuring individuals can rely on this income stream. So this is something you can plan on having at the level you've now got it. And as we learn to produce more will get a bigger automation annuity payment. It's something you can plan on in addition to Social Security when you get older to have a decent retirement. Section 5, Implementation Guidelines. Bringing the automation annuity to life means more than just passing legislation. It requires a thoughtful, measured rollout. The goal is to raise consumer demand steadily and responsibly until we reach the top of the production parabola, all while watching inflation closely. Here are 3 key guidelines for making that happen. The first is gradually increase payments until demand pull inflation appears. Remember, demand pull inflation is too many dollars chasing too few goods. That's what we lived with back in the 70s, 80s, and quite a bit of the 90s. We will start with a small, consistent increases in automation annuity payments until we begin to see signs of demand pull inflation. That's when there's too much money chasing too few goods. An example of demand pull inflation happened in the early 1980s. The massive baby boomer generation surged into the housing market, creating overwhelming demand for homes and loans. Prices and interest rates spiked. Inflation spiraled as workers demanded higher wages just to maintain their standard of living. This kind of built-in inflation is dangerous and can lead to runaway or even hyperinflation, which we must avoid at all costs. Here's a personal illustration from that era. In 1966, 9 in 10 Americans could afford a home. By 1971, it dropped to 7 in 10. By 1976, it was just 3 in 10, and I was told I'd overpaid for a $30,000 house. By 1982, just 1 in 10 Americans could buy a home. Back then, mortgage rates hit a historic high of 18.45%. The housing market collapsed under the pressure, and construction halted. Even dual income professionals struggled to qualify for a mortgage. I saw that. Yeah, being an engineer and a teacher, they couldn't afford to buy a house. Lesson: once demand pull inflation begins, stop increasing the automation annuity, but continue the existing payments. The automation annuity never goes down, but it does, the increases stop. Second guideline, raise payments cautiously, especially early on. In the beginning, let at least 6 months pass between automation annuity increases. People will use that money in different ways. Some will spend it, others will pay down debt or build savings. At first, much of the money will go toward credit card balances and student loans. That means it won't immediately stimulate spending. But once those debts are cleared, the floodgates can open, and if we're not careful, it could lead to inflation. Once we approach the top of the production parabola, raise payments just once per year and review the data before making further adjustments. Third guideline, keep increasing payments during cost push inflation. Not all inflation comes from too much demand. Cost push inflation happens when outside forces raise prices, like pandemics, fuel shortages, war, climate disruptions, or supply chain problems. These are temporary shocks that ripple through the economy. In these cases, we should continue increasing the automation annuity in small steps to help people maintain their purchasing power. Using interest rate hikes to fight cost-push inflation can backfire. It can squeeze households, slow the economy when people already feel financial pain. Worse, it could cause workers to demand wage increases, starting the very wage price spiral we're trying to avoid. Bottom line, the key to navigating cost-push inflation is patience, a belief in capitalism, and maintaining a strong consumer demand. Now we're going to shift gears slightly and look at how we got into some of the mess that we got into. Is called modern monetary theory. And the problem was it wasn't modern enough. In the 1970s, economists introduced modern monetary theory, proposing that countries issuing their own currency could never face insolvency, as they could always print more money to settle debts. This idea gained traction, suggesting that such nations could engage in unlimited deficit spending without traditional constraints of balanced budgets. MMT advocates argued that inflation, the primary risk of excessive money creation, can be managed through taxation and policy adjustments. That's from the Investopedia. Boy, we sure did run a big debt up. If you take a look at this graph of public debt of the United States from 1990 to 2022, there at when we hit the top of the production curve and moved from a seller's market to a buyer's market. Well, when we entered the buyer's market, our debt was $5 trillion. It shows 5,000 there because it's $5,000 billion, which is $5 trillion. Well, that seems small, but in just a period of 25 years, we've now run up to almost $37 trillion. Note that debt has increased from just over 5 trillion in 2000 to almost 37 trillion in 2025. Much of this debt could have been avoided by using the automation annuity once we entered the buyer's market earlier in this century. The cost of not understanding the production parabola, of not understanding that we've entered a buyer's market, we could have spent a lot of this money that was spent to prop up our economy. All this big spending did not create massive inflation. It was spent just to keep the economy not going into deflation. We had stunningly low inflationary rates, and that was in spite of this terrible deficit that we've incurred. And now we can't service the debt. We can't pay it off. Our credit rating's starting to slip. That was a real mistake, and we just didn't need to do that. But we didn't know any better. For a time, especially post-2000, the U.S. experienced low inflation despite significant government spending and low interest rates, seemingly validating MMT's principles. However, this period coincided with the economy operating on the buyer's market side of the production parabola, characterized by excess goods and services relative to consumer demand. In such a context, increased government spending didn't immediately lead to inflation, but it did add $32 trillion to our national debt. And there's a graph of annual inflation rate in the United States from 1990 to 2022. And you can see it's just not very much in spite of this massive amount of money coming into the economy. We had done this 25 years later, back in the periods of from 1975 to 2000, we would have created massive hyperinflation. We would have been like the Weimar Republic, using a wheelbarrow to carry around our cash to go buy a loaf of bread. And now we've got this huge debt to service. Not understanding the production parabola has cost us dearly. Lessons learned from modern monetary theory. Target monetary distribution is critical. Simply increasing the money supply isn't sufficient. Funds must reach consumers directly to stimulate demand effectively. Large-scale government projects often funnel money to corporations, bypassing the average citizen and failing to bolster consumer spending. Those big government contracts, they end up giving a lot of money to the people who own the machines, and just a little bit gets down to the laborers. Second lesson, avoid accumulating debt for stimulus. Ooh, that happened in industrial countries all over the world. Almost all of them have got massive debts now. Financing stimulus through borrowing burdens future generations with debt and interest obligations. In contrast, the Automation Annuity proposes issuing funds from a non-repayable account, eliminating the need for future repayment and reducing long-term fiscal pressure. Recognize the limitations of trickle-down economics. Oh, that was a cruel joke on the middle class and the poor. Allocating funds to large mechanized firms under the assumption that benefits will trickle down to the broader population has proven ineffective. Direct financial support to consumers ensures immediate and widespread economic stimulation. Fourth item, address the decline in consumer demand. As automation replaces human labor, consumer purchasing power diminishes, leading to decreased demand. MMT does not adequately tackle this challenge. The Automation Annuity aims to restore consumer demand by directly supplementing incomes and thereby supporting a consumer corporation economy. In essence, while MMT brought valuable insights into the discourse